All right, in today's tutorial, we're going to talk about HTML, its basics, and how to actually implement the things that we learn. So the first thing that we have to do is, in order to execute HTML code, in order to get things up and running, we'll have to first write the code, right? You'll have to write the HTML code first. So where do you do that? You do that in any standard text editor. And the text editor that we'll be using today is the Notepad. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to open up your Notepad. And now what is advisable is, again, this is not compulsory, but it's advisable that you first save the file. Okay. So go to the file option, click on save as, select an appropriate location where you want to save the file. Let's say I want to save it in my particular folder. I'll tell you about it. It's called the HTML tutorial folder. I have it created. Yeah, as you can see, this is the one. So I go inside the folder and I'm going to select an appropriate name. I'm going to call it demo. Okay. And I also have to give it an extension. So the extension that I'll be using is .htm. Is this the only extension that you can use for your HTML file? Of course not. You can go for .htm or you can even go for .html. Okay, so it's up to you. It's up to you what you want to go with. But I would personally recommend to go with the latest extension, which is supported by all modern browsers and their upgraded versions. Okay, so it's best if you go with the .htm extension, and you want to save it as all files. Click on save. That's it. It's done. Now your file is ready. Now you can start typing the code, the HTML code. Now before going into the code, now of course you want to know what is HTML, right? So HTML, firstly, what's the full form? The full form is Hypertext Markup Language. Okay. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is a tool which is used for designing and developing websites and web pages. That is the main use of HTML. And HTML is not the only tool using which we can develop websites. There are tools such as CSS, JavaScript, PHP, and many more. Many more tools are available using which we can do web development. And a lot depends on the school of thought that you belong to. So you can use various frameworks, you can use various languages to develop your web pages. Okay, HTML is not the only programming language. People do not usually call it a programming language. You can think of it as a tool. Okay, you can think of it as a tool for website development, but it's not the only one. But one thing that we must keep in mind is HTML forms the backbone of any website that we develop. Okay, so whether you're using JavaScript or PHP or any of the latest web development tools, HTML will always be there. So HTML is a constant. HTML will lay the foundation. On top of that foundation, you can use your other sophisticated tools in order to make your website more appealing, and you can make it more sophisticated. But HTML will always be there, right? Okay. Now, remember, HTML is made up of elements. So HTML is made up of elements. Okay, so we'll be looking at the elements one after the other, and elements are mainly of two types. Elements are mainly of two types. Okay, so the first type is elements with opening and closing tags. What are tags? I'll come to that shortly. And elements with only opening tag. Okay, so there are mainly two types of HTML elements, the ones which have both opening and closing tags, and the ones which have only opening tag. Now, what exactly is a tag? A tag is a component which is enclosed within opening and closing angular brackets. So anything in HTML that you find within opening and closing angular bracket is known as a tag, right? Now, you will mainly have two types of tags. You'll have opening tags and you'll have closing tags. Now, how do you differentiate between the two? You'll differentiate between the two using something known as a forward slash. Okay. So using a forward slash, right? Using a forward slash. So this is the forward slash symbol. Using this, you'll be able to differentiate between an opening tag and a closing tag. More on this in the later part of this video where we go for the demonstration. But just keep this in mind that it's not that opening and closing tags are one and the same. They can be differentiated with the help of this slash symbol, right? And what about elements with only opening tag? So you would have only your angular brackets containing the HTML element. Okay, so that was about the types of tags that you can have. And there is also something known as an HTML attribute. And what does an attribute do? An attribute will modify. So it modifies the default behavior. It modifies the default behavior of an HTML element. That's what it does. Now, you might be wondering what exactly is default behavior. I'll give you an example. If I execute some HTML code, the default background color of my browser on which the HTML code actually runs is white. Now, if I want to change this default color from white to something like yellow, then I'll have to use an attribute called BG color. More on this later. For now, just keep in mind that BG color is an attribute to which, if we assign an appropriate color, the background color of our browser will change. So what are we doing? We are using this BG color attribute to change the default background color from white to yellow, isn't it? So that's what attributes are mainly used for. And where do attributes find their place in HTML? Remember, attributes are always found in the opening tag and never in the closing tag. Okay. They are placed in the opening tag of an HTML element and never in the closing tag. Please keep this in mind. This is important. Okay, so that was about your attribute. So this is a fairly brief introduction, yet in-depth introduction on what HTML is and what are the components that make up HTML. So I would request all of you to pause the video for a moment and note down all this that you see on your screen. Because once you're done, then I can start with the demonstration. Okay, I hope you have noted everything down. Just remove all this and let me start with my first demonstration. Now, whenever we are writing HTML code, remember, HTML is the root element that we'll have to start with. Now, this might be a funny thing because the website development tool that we are using is HTML and the root element is also HTML. Okay, so it might be a bit confusing to you at first, but keep in mind that all the code that you write pertaining to HTML will go within the opening and closing HTML tags. All the code that you write. So this is my opening HTML tag. And what is my closing HTML tag? Like I said, you'll use a forward slash. So what do? I type forward slash HTML. Now what happens? Now I have my HTML opening tag and HTML closing tag, and everything will go in between. All the code that I need to write, no matter how sophisticated a website is or how simple it is, that doesn't matter. All the code will go between the opening and closing HTML tags. And HTML tag, or the HTML element in this case. So HTML is the element, okay? The element is HTML and it has an opening tag, the part that I've highlighted now, and it has a closing tag, that the part that I've highlighted now. Okay, fine. Now the next thing that we'll have to do is we'll have to start with the head section. So every HTML document will essentially have two sections, a head section and a body section. So all the code that we'll write as part of our head section will go within the opening head tag that you have seen highlighted right now, and the closing head tag that you see highlighted right now. So all the code pertaining to our head section will go within the opening head tag and the closing head tag. So head is the element, and the term head within angular brackets is the opening head tag, and the term head preceded by a forward slash within angular brackets is the closing head tag. So I hope you're getting the difference between an element, an opening tag of the element, and closing tag of the element. Three things are different. Okay, an element in this case, so right now we can see two elements on our screen, right? What are the two elements? HTML and head. Now HTML element has an opening HTML tag enclosing the term HTML by the angular brackets. This is the opening tag, and it also has a corresponding closing tag. Again, the term HTML is enclosed within the opening and closing angular brackets, but this time around, the HTML term is preceded by a forward slash. Okay, so that is about your element, opening tag, and closing tag. Now, coming to the head section, what kind of information would you have in the head section? In the head section, you would essentially be having details such as the type of the web page, the title of the web page, the external files that your current web page is using, all such details regarding the, you can say, the outline or the background of the web page is mentioned in the head section. For simplicity, I'll be restricting the discussion of the head section to only one element called the title element. So if you want the title of a web page, you can use the opening title tag and the closing title tag. And whatever you want the title of your web page to be, you can write the content in between. Okay, so maybe I want the title of my web page to be my first web page. So I want my title to appear as my first web page. So what do? I enclose the content. I enclose my title, my first web page, within the opening title tag and the closing title tag. As simple as that. For now, I'll be restricting the discussion of head section to only the title element. Later on, we'll see what are the other things that can be included in the head section. Now, the next section of an HTML document is the body section. Now, this part is where you would write all your code that would appear on the browser window. So HTML code is run on a browser, right? You take any of the browsers, your Firefox, Safari, Chrome, Edge, all these browsers are equipped to run HTML code. So I'll be writing the code, or I'll be forming the input of the HTML document using a text editor such as Notepad. But when I'll have to execute this, when I'll have to look at the outcome of the HTML code, then I'll make use of a browser. So what will I do? I'll open the file, I'll open the HTML file using a browser, and I'll see the output appearing, the output of the HTML code, right? Okay. Now, like I was saying, that whatever we want to appear as the content of our browser should be present within the body tags. So within the opening body tag and the closing body tag, we'll be having all our web page content. Now, let's start with the first content, or the first type of content that we can have for an HTML document, and that is the heading. So in HTML, there are 6 levels of heading. There are 6 levels of heading in HTML. 6. And they range from H1 to H6. They range from level 1 heading, denoted by opening and closing H1 tags, and they go up to level 6 headings. Okay, so you have H1, you have H2, you have, I'll be demonstrating all 6, okay, so that you can understand what it's all about. You have H3, you have H4, you have H5. Okay, I'm sorry about that. H4, H5, and H6. Now, what's the difference between these levels of heading? The main difference lies in the appearance. So a level 1 heading would be the largest in size, whereas a level 6 heading would be the smallest in size. Now, you can understand the size depends on the importance. So if you have a very important information to convey, you would probably go for a level 1 heading. If you have something of lesser importance to display on your website, you would probably go for a level 4 or level 5. Personally speaking, level 6 heading is very small in size, difficult to recognize. So I think up to level 4 or maximum level 5 should suffice. Okay, but anyhow, the difference lies in the size. So the most important heading is your H1 level heading, and the least important is the H6 level heading. So let's type in some content. So what do you want your heading to be? Let's say you want your heading to be something as straightforward as heading 1. Similarly, you want something as straightforward as heading 2, right? Okay, so you might be observing that I'm giving some space here between the opening H2 tag and the actual heading, which is heading 2. There is a gap. Is it compulsory to give this gap? No, it's not necessary. I'm just giving it so that you can understand things better. Okay, it's easier to understand. It's easier to visualize. That's why I'm spacing it out. Okay, again, after typing out heading 2, I'm giving a small gap, one space, and then typing the closing tag. Is it necessary? No. I'm doing it only to enhance readability of the code. Then we have something such as heading 3, and we have heading 4, and we have heading 5. Lastly, we have heading 6. Okay, now I want to show you the output of this. Okay, first thing that I'll have to do is I'll have to save the file. I'll have to open it up. So as you can see, it shows up like this, my HTML file demo. I'll simply double click on it, and it will open up in my default browser, which is the Chrome browser. So you can have a look. So as you can see, the headings are decreasing, right? The headings are decreasing in size, starting from level 1 heading, which is the largest, to level 6 heading, which is the smallest. Like I said, the level 6 heading is very small for our liking, and you would rarely be using it because it's difficult to make out what the level 6 heading is about. Its size is way too small, if you ask me. Okay, fine. So that was regarding the headings in HTML. Now, along with headings, there's something known as a paragraph. Okay. Now, when would you go for a paragraph? You would go for a paragraph when you have a lot of text to write. Okay, so you want to write an actual paragraph of text for your website. Then you can use the paragraph element. And what would that be? That would be your element P. So P here denotes paragraph. Now the paragraph element has an opening P tag, and it also has a closing P tag. All the content that you want for your paragraph will go in between the opening and closing P tags. Okay, so I want to write something random, maybe something like uh, today is Sunday. It is a holiday for me as well. I'm doing what I enjoy a lot. Cristiano Ronaldo is back. Yes, how can I miss this? How can I stop talking about Cristiano? Oh, what a game it was last night. Fantastic. So Cristiano Ronaldo is back to where he belongs, right? What a player. Okay, so as you can see, I have a paragraph with me, right? Now, how would this look like? So let me just save it and open up my browser. Now, if you want, you can again, you can just go to this file and you can double click on it and you'll find that it will open up in a new tab. Can you see it opens up in a new tab? Or what you can do is you can open up the existing tab and you can simply refresh or reload. So if you reload, can you see? So today is Sunday. The paragraph appears here. Let me zoom in a bit if you are unable to see it. So here it is. Today is Sunday. It's a holiday for me as well, and so on, right? So this is how a paragraph appears. This is how a paragraph appears. And another thing that you would be interested to note here is the title. Can you see the title? My first web page. Let me show up the code for you. Let me show you both the code and the output parallelly so that you can understand. So here, as you can see, the title is what? My first web page. That is exactly what appears here on the browser tab. You have the 6 levels of heading, which we saw just now. We have a paragraph, which also appears clearly. And as you can see, the headings are well spaced out, right? So if you look at 2 consecutive headings, there's a sufficient amount of gap between them. And the same thing goes for a heading and a paragraph. There's sufficient amount of gap. So this gap comes in by default. So by default, there's a gap between 2 consecutive headings and a heading and a paragraph, right? So I guess this makes sense. This is how you can create a paragraph. Now, do you have multiple levels of paragraph as well? Like you have multiple levels of heading? The answer is no. There is no level of paragraph. There's no concept such as having levels for paragraph. You have only one type of paragraph element, which is the P element. The next question that would pop up in your mind is, can we have only one paragraph in our HTML document? Of course not. You can have multiple paragraphs. And for every paragraph, you would be using a separate pair of P tags, right? Or if you want, you can squeeze everything in within a single pair of P tags. So you can write more content between the same pair of P tags that you have typed out just now, or you can create a new pair. So you can say that Manchester United. See, I'm a big Red Devils fan. I can't help it. Can't help talking about my team. Manchester United will probably end their silverware drought this season. Now, this is what I'm predicting. Let's see what happens. So coming back to HTML, I have created another paragraph, right? I've created another paragraph and it reads as Manchester United will probably end their silverware drought this season. Let's see what happens. I mean, let's see what the HTML code looks like. So if I reload, as you can see, another paragraph has been inserted and it's well spaced out from the previous paragraph, right? So in this way, you can have multiple paragraphs in HTML. But again, please remember, there's no such thing as levels of paragraph. You have only one type of paragraph denoted by the P element. Okay, fine. Now, if you remember earlier on in the discussion, I spoke about the background color. So how do you change the background color? How do you change the background color of your browser? So as you can see, I'll just close this tab. You don't require 2 tabs. So as you can see, the default color is what? The default color of my browser is white, isn't it? The default color of my browser is white. Now, if I want to change this, what I can do is I can go to the body element. Where do I go? Now, the body element has 2 tags, right? Do I go to the opening tag or do I go to the closing tag? Pause the video for a moment and think about it. Okay, I hope you've given it a thought. You'll always go into the opening tag, okay? Whenever you're looking to come up with an attribute for an element, please go to the opening tag. Now, if I have to change the background color of my browser, I'll have to use an attribute for the body element. And where do I place this attribute for the body element? I place it in the opening tag. So I go to the opening tag and look at this very carefully. I go to the opening tag, I give a space, and then I write the name of the attribute. What is the name of the attribute? BGCOLOR. Okay, be careful with the spelling here. This is a place where most students kind of get it wrong. They mistakenly type COLOUR, but don't forget it's the Americans who have come up with HTML, so they have used their spelling of color, which is COLOR and not COLOUR. If you go for COLOUR, it will not work. Okay, so BG color, right? BGCOLOR, and then you give the value. Let's say I want the value as yellow or maybe red. Red goes well with the current scenario. So BG color equal to red. You want the background to appear as red, right? And remember, the value that you give has to be within double quotes. Please make sure that the value is within double quotes. Okay, if you omit the double quotes, you may get the correct result. You may get it, but then again, you may not get it as well. Just to be on the safe side, just to be certain, please enclose your value of the attribute. So the value of the attribute is what? Red. The name of the attribute is BG color. The value of the attribute is red. Now, if you want your attribute to be reflected properly in the output, then please enclose the attribute value, not the attribute name. Don't end up enclosing BG color within double quotes. No, the name of the attribute is BG color, right? The name of the attribute is BG color. The name of the attribute is BG color. The name of the attribute is BG color. The value that we are assigning to this attribute is red. The value has to be enclosed within double quotes. So red has to be enclosed within double quotes, right? Okay. So now what we do is we again save the file. Just go to your browser and you reload it and see what happens. Can you see? The background color turns into red. Okay. So that's the mood right now. Anyway, so that, I guess that makes sense, right? The background color. Okay. Now the next thing that I want to demonstrate is how do you insert a link to an external resource. So maybe you have created a web page and you want a link inside your web page that will redirect to another website, or maybe it will redirect to another web page of the same website. Okay, see, links can be used in two ways. Either you use the link to redirect to a new website, completely different website from the one which you're working with, or you can use it to redirect to another web page of the same website. Okay, for now we'll focus on redirecting to an external website. Later on, we'll come back to redirecting to another web page of the same website. Okay, right now we're getting started with the basics. So let's see how we can redirect to a new website. So what I'll do is I'll use the element A. So A here stands for anchor. The A element stands for anchor and it is used for creating hyperlinks. Okay, it is like the term that we use, the technical term that is used for links to external websites or other web pages in the same website is hyperlink. So if you are looking to create a hyperlink in HTML, please use the pair of anchor tags. Please use the pair of A tags. So you have your opening A tag and you have your closing A tag. And what you do is you enclose your link text. So maybe the text is something like the Red Devils. Okay. Okay, so this is the text. This is the hyperlink text. And now merely specifying the hyperlink text will not be enough. I'll show you. So if you save this file, open up your browser, and if you refresh it, you'll find that if I'm clicking on it, so if it's a hyperlink, then if I click on it, I should be redirected, right? I should be redirected to the appropriate web page, but that's not happening. Why is it so? Because simply having the link text, simply having the hyperlink text within the anchor element is not enough. Then what do we need? What do we need along with the text for the link? We require the address. We require the address of the website or the web page to which we want to redirect to. So we require the web page address. Okay, we require the web page address. Now the question is, how do we specify the web page address? That's a very important question, right? How do we specify it? Now, in order to specify the web page address, we'll have to make use of an attribute called href. So href is short for hypertext reference, and this is the second attribute that I'm introducing you to. Remember, the first attribute that I introduced you to was bg color, right? So href is the second attribute that you're being introduced to. And what will you do? To this attribute, you'll assign the value like this. So you type the entire address, okay? No, don't type the partial address. Type the entire address. By partial address, what do I mean? I'll tell you about it. First, I'll tell you what's the full address. So https:// and www.manunited.com. Okay, this is the full website address of Manchester United. And what would be a partial website address? Maybe you type something like this: www.manunited.com. Now this will not work. Okay, this will not work. Or maybe you type something like this: manunited.com. This will also not work. You'll have to come up with the entire address. So that begins from https:// www.manunited.com. Okay, now this will work. I'll show you. Save the file, open up your browser, refresh it. Now can you see the text has now changed? It is underlined and it's blue in color, and if I place my cursor over it, see, it changes into a hand, meaning that the link is now active. So if I click on this, see what happens. Will the official web page open up? And yes, it's opening up, as you can see, right? The result of last night's game: United 4, Newcastle 1. Okay, I'll just go back. So that is how you insert hyperlinks. Okay, don't forget the href attribute, and don't forget to mention the entire website address starting from https. Otherwise, it will not work. Okay, so I hope this is clear to all of you. Fine. Now let me show you how you can insert an image in HTML. In order to insert an image, you need the img element. You need the img element, and the img element has only an opening tag. It has no closing tag. If you remember, at the beginning I had mentioned that HTML elements are mainly of two types: elements with opening and closing tags, and elements with only opening tags. Now the img element has only an opening tag, no closing tag. Okay, and what we do is we say src. So src is the attribute, and we give it a value. What is the value that we give? We give the value to the src attribute as the name of the image that we are trying to insert. So let's say I want to insert this particular image. It's called my school, right? And we need to know a few things about the image that we're trying to insert. So how do you know about it? Simply select the image, right click on it, and from the drop down list, click on properties. Now, if you click on properties, there's this tab called details. So click on that. From there, if you just scroll down a bit, can you see the name? This is the entire name that we'll have to insert. Simply inserting the name of the file shown here, my school, will not work. Along with the name of the file, you also need the extension. And what is the extension? .jpg. So you'll have to type myschool.jpg. That is the entire name that you have to insert. The extension is a must, otherwise it will not work. So you go to your notepad, within double quotes, you type myschool.jpg. Okay, you type myschool.jpg, and this will work. This will work just fine. But there'll be one slight problem with this. I'll show you what that problem is. First, let me show you the output. Save this. And please make sure, okay, before I show you the output, please make sure, please make sure that the image file and your HTML file are in the same location. Your image file and your HTML file must be in the same location. Now you'll ask, what if they're not in the same location? Can we not insert such an image? Yes, we can insert such an image, but it involves some more hassles. I'll come to that a bit later. First, let's get the basics right. Now go to the web page. We have saved our file. Let's go to the web page that we are designing, to the browser, reload. Yeah, can you see this? The image appears, right? The image appears, but as you can see, the link and the image, they're not spaced out. Yes, they are not overlapping each other. The image appears on the next line as the link, but it's not spaced out. It's not beautifully spaced out like it was for two consecutive levels of heading, or between a heading and a paragraph, or between two paragraphs. It's not spaced out that well. Now, if we, so what can we conclude from this? We can conclude that between links and images, the spacing is not so automatic, and it's not so, you can say, compact. Okay, it's not so appealing. The spacing between a link and an image is not so appealing. So can we increase the space manually? The answer is yes. How can we increase the space? Very simple. There is another element called the line break, and it's specified using the BR tag. Again, BR is an HTML element which has only an opening tag. It has no closing tag. Okay, BR, just like your IMG element has only an opening tag, your BR element also has only an opening tag. So if you specify BR here, and if you save the file, go to browser, go to the browser, reload it. Can you see? Okay, I don't think it's still spaced out, but let me check. So maybe one line break is not enough. Let's try a couple more. Save the file. Now you can see that the gap is visible, right? So one line break was not enough. I had to try out a couple more in order to space out my link and my image. Okay, so this is another tag that you would be interested in. Now, one more thing you must have noticed about this image is I have to scroll up and scroll down to see the entire image. And even then, I did not get the entire image in one frame, right? So if I scroll down, you can see the top part of it disappears. Otherwise, I have to scroll right, scroll left. So it's posing kind of difficulty in viewing because of its size, the original size. So what I can do is I can modify the size. How do I modify the size? There are two more attributes called height and width. So you can specify the height and width of the image that you want. So let's say you want a height of, again, that depends on the height and width of the original image. So how do you find that out? It's good to find out the height and width of the original image and set the height and width in your HTML code accordingly. Okay, don't just go for random values, set it accordingly. So how do you find the height of the image and width of the image? Again, go to the image, select it like I have selected it here, right click on it, and from the drop down list there's properties, click on that, and from there again go to details, and here you'll find the dimensions. Okay, so the width is 960 pixels, height is 720 pixels. Now what is pixels? Pixels, or 1 pixel, is a picture element and it denotes the unit of an image. You can think of pixel as a unit for measuring the size of an image, right? Okay, so it's 960 pixels wide and 720 pixels in height. So what we can do is we can divide it by 2, right? We can go for half the size. So we can go with something like width as 480 and height is 360. Let's try that. Let's try a width of 480 and a height of 360. Let's see how our image appears. Will it be any better? Let's save the file. Don't forget to save the file. Every time you make a change to your HTML code, If you want that change to be reflected in the browser, please save the file, go to the browser and reload. Okay, go to the browser and reload. Now can you see? Yeah, this looks a lot better, right? So the image is now in a compact form and it looks appealing as well. Okay, so that is how we can insert an image. Now, oftentimes what happens is the image may not be loaded on the website successfully, maybe due to connection issues, or maybe because the file name is somehow corrupted. There can be a host of issues. There can be a lot of issues online due to which the image does not show up properly. In that case, what do you get? In that case, you get an alternate text telling the user what the image is all about. Now you can insert an alternate text using the alt attribute. So there's an attribute called alt, and you can assign it a value. Let's say I'm going to assign a value such as my school, right? I'll save the file. And let's say for some reason, this file is corrupt. Now, how do I make it corrupt? Purposely, so that you can understand what I'm trying to convey. Let me just change the name of the spelling. Okay. I'm purposely removing this S. Now, as you can see, the name of the file is changed. Now, if I refresh this, can you see? I'm getting the alternate text. Have a look at this. The alternate text, the alt value, the alt attribute value is my school. And that is exactly what I get here, right? The alt attribute value shows up here. So this is what happens if the image does not load properly. The border around the image is shown and the alternate text of the image is also shown. So here again, if I bring it back, if I give the original name of the file, the correct name of the file, save it, go to the browser, and if I reload it, the image is back again, right? The image is back again and things work. Okay, so that was about images. Now, there's one last thing that I want to show you before I wrap up this tutorial, and that is, what if the image is not present in the same folder as your HTML file? Can happen, right? I'll show you. Let's say I take this image and I move it. Let's say I cut this image. I cut paste in the documents folder itself. So if I paste it here, okay, now you can see my HTML file is inside the HTML tutorial folder, while the image that I'm working with, my school, is somewhere else. It's in the documents folder, right? So if I reload, now see what happens. If I reload, see the image doesn't show up because it cannot find the image. My browser cannot find the image. Why can it not find the image? I've only specified the name of the image. When you specify only the name of the image, what happens is the browser looks inside the folder in which the HTML file is present. My HTML file is present inside the HTML tutorial folder, but is my image file present there? It's not present there. The browser will look inside this HTML tutorial folder because only the name of the image has been specified. Now, since it will not find the image inside this folder, HTML tutorial, the image will not show up on my browser. So what's the way about it? This time around, instead of specifying only the name of the file, please specify the entire path. By path, what we mean is just locate the image. So my image is here, right? This is my image. Now, where is it present? Just click on this part. So you can see it's present inside the documents folder. And where is my documents folder present? My documents folder is present inside the C drive, right? So if you click on the C drive, and then if you go to documents, so where is documents? In fact, under the C file, there is something known as the users folder, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, in my case, it's under the users folder. Under that, I have user folder. Under user folder, I have my documents. Okay, that's how the hierarchy is in my system. It may be different in yours, but whatever it be, you can just locate it. You can locate the file. So I have finally located my image. Now, what's the entire path? Just click on this part and you can see that I get the entire path, right? I get the entire path. I copy it. I go to the HTML file and I paste it here. Now I put another forward slash. So this completes my path. So how is the path shown up? The image file. So how will you read this? The image file myschool.jpg is present in the C drive inside the users folder. Under the users folder, there is a user folder. Under the user folder, there is a documents folder. And finally, inside the documents folder is my image. Now, if I specify it in this way, if I specify the entire path, then things will work. See, if I save this, I go to the browser, and if I refresh, now the image comes back again. Because now what will my browser do? Now my browser will look in this entire path. Previously, it was looking inside the folder which contains my HTML file, because I had specified only the name of the image. But the moment I specify the entire path of the image, the moment I say that no, it's present inside the C drive, under the C drive, it's present in the users folder, under the users folder, it's present under the user folder, under user folder, look into the documents folder, and finally inside the documents folder, locate my image. Then the browser will be able to do it successfully, and the image shows up in the browser itself. So this is how we can use an image which is not present in the same folder as our HTML document. So as you can see, the HTML document is present inside a folder called HTML tutorial, in which the image is not present. But my advice to you would be, always include the HTML file and the image file inside the same folder. Always make sure that their location is exactly the same. Otherwise, you will run into unnecessary confusion and it will be difficult to sort things out. This is my personal suggestion to you. Okay, so that was all about today's tutorial. I hope you have understood what I wanted to convey. In case you haven't, please feel free to leave your comments. I'll answer them one by one, not a problem. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.